During each 12,000-year cycle of catastrophe, there is a drift of the magnetic poles, which we are observing now. The pole shift from 12,000 years ago is called Gutenberg excursion, 24, Lake Mungo, 36, Mono Lake, 48, La Chambre, and so on. In past cycles, the magnetic field also weakened. For example, according to the paleomagnetic research and dendrochronology, during the La Chambre event, the planet's magnetosphere shrank to about 3.8 times the Earth's radius. One hypothesis claims that the extinction of Neanderthals occurred due to the increased ultraviolet radiations, since the weakened magnetic field allowed greater flow of radiation to the Earth's surface. According to scientists' model, at that time, auroras were observed even near the equator. These changes of the magnetic field are already gaining momentum now. You may think that this is not a very important parameter since you cannot feel it by yourself. But in fact, this is a catastrophic phenomenon threatening all life on the planet, and soon you will see this for yourself. Let's look at the changes of the magnetic field in the current 12,000-year cycle, what anomalies on the planet they cause, and what threats these possess to us. Again, that in 1995, as a result of the changes in the Earth magnetic field and in the Earth core, the North Magnetic Pole, previously moving at a speed of about 10 miles a year, drastically accelerated by 3.5 times. This is the result of heating of the outer core and acceleration of the flow of molten iron inside of it. Today, South Atlantic magnetic anomaly is growing due to the magnetic field weakening. Over last century, the intensity of the Earth magnetic field has dropped by more than 10%. This means that a more powerful flow of cosmic radiation, such as ultraviolet, X-ray, gamma, and their derivative, is threatening us. This also means that an even greater flux of the external cosmic impact is penetrating towards the core. There is another sign of the changes in the Earth magnetic field, which indicates the stabilization of the core and is probably unexpected for you. These are atypical auroras. You probably noticed that this year there are particularly many abnormally bright and frequent auroras in various non-typical places of the planet. People have posted numerous photos and videos on social networks admiring this phenomena. However, unfortunately, there isn't anything to admire, and now we will explain why. What is an aurora? This is the interaction of the solar wind with the Earth magnetic field and the atmosphere. In simple terms, the solar wind particles interact with oxygen and nitrogen, causing them to emit light, which we observe as an aurora. Depending on how deeply charged particle can penetrate the atmosphere, what energy they have, the auroras with different colors we will observe. Each altitude has its own color, which is determined by the composition and density of the atmosphere. On Earth, we used to see green auroras, mainly on the poles. Green auroras occurs at the height of 60 to 130 kilometers above the Earth. Then solar wind particles with a medium energy interact with atomic oxygen. However, the auroras also can be red. It occurs due to the interaction of high-energy solar wind particles with atomic oxygen. Usually, it appears at the heights above 130 miles because such high-energy particles were prevented by the magnetic field from penetrating below this altitude. Red auroras were rare. They occurred only during the intense magnetic storms. Now, we observe an extremely alarming anomaly. Not only red auroras become more frequent, they already been observed at the altitude lower than 55 miles. What does it mean? First of all, this means that the magnetic field is weakening, and those active high-energy particles of solar wind, which were supposed to be reflected by the magnetic field, and they are freely penetrating deeper into the atmosphere and beginning to interact with atomic oxygen closer to the Earth. This is important to note that there is a penetration of larger, more highly charged particles that act more destructively. The fact that the red auroras occur in the lower layers of the atmosphere means that they are no longer protection above. The second reason why the auroras are behaving abnormally is the descent of the upper layer and middle layers of the atmosphere. The atmosphere is contracting, it is sinking, and the density of its upper and middle layers is decreasing. Moreover, its chemical composition is changing. Satellite data has revealed a decrease in the concentration of oxygen by 2 to 4 times at the altitudes of 80 miles. And the rate of the oxygen loss is significantly exceed all predictive model, indicating some pathological process leading to a decrease in oxygen in the atmosphere. Scientists also record the destruction of ozone by solar wind at the altitudes of 50 miles, and soon we will see the ozone layer being destroyed in the stratosphere at the altitudes of 30 miles. This means that we will lose our protection from UV radiation. Red auroras are already appearing in mid-latitude. Many of these were observed in February and March 2023. On January 5th, 2023, the sky over Germany was colored red. This was example of anomalous static red aurora. In addition to anomalous red aurora, blue, teal, white, and even pink auroras have also been observed, which also indicate the penetration of solar wind closer to the surface of Earth and cracks in the magnetic field. During the solar flares, auroras are increasingly moving towards the equator. For example, during the strong magnetic storm on March 24, 2023, which scientists could not predict in advance and did not expect its arrival, the auroras was observed in the United States, even in southern regions, such as Virginia, North Carolina, Oklahoma, and in Arizona. Polar auroras started reaching southern latitudes in Europe, such as Czech Republic, Ukraine, and southern Russia. Unusual bright and frequent auroras, which now occur far from the polar region, cannot be explained by activity of the sun, as the sun is currently in a prolonged minimum of its activity, meaning that the fewer particles from solar wind will reach the Earth. The only explanation for the aurora's anomalies is that the magnetic field is critically weakening, the atmosphere is contracting, and the solar wind is descending closer and closer to the surface. This is scary because it shows a large disturbance in the magnetic field, and it is a sign that the Earth's core is no longer working properly. We are horrified by the fact that people are now just admiring this phenomenon without realizing that this is the black mark of Cerberus. Admiring the northern lights with their rare colors is like admiring the cleanliness and sharpness of a blade when you are lying on a guillotine. Unfortunately, the scientific community does not consider the problem comprehensively as they should. These processes will only intensify further, and there will be more and more harsh radiation coming from space.
Few people know that there is another anomalous phenomenon that has become more frequent in the last few years. It is a logical manifestation of an atypical behavior of a magnetic field, which looks like light pillars. Previously, similar phenomena were observed only during the auroras, but now they start to occur even without them. Currently, these phenomena are mainly observed in cold regions at night when there's a light from street lamps. You can read that such light pillars appear because hexagonal or column-shaped ice crystals are suspended in the air, one above another, and are illuminated by a light source. But recall night-winter photos from 10 to 20 years ago. Did you see light pillars on them as often as you see them now? After all, there were street lights, but there were no pillars. What is now keeping the ice crystals in suspended state? This is not just an optical effect. Nowadays, there are more and more cases when light pillars appear in groups. They are brightly colored in the color of the streetlights illuminating them. But the intensity of the pillar glows does not correspond to the brightness of the light source. And what is more abnormal is that light pillars with a red tint or color appeared, independent of the light source. What are these light pillars? This is an atypical manifestation of the magnetic field properties, which cannot be detected by our instruments. It indicates a local weakening of the magnetic field. During such phenomena, cosmic radiation penetrates to the surface of the Earth along the magnetic field lines, interacts with the molecules in the air. This is what colors the pillars in different shades, similar to auroras. Ice crystals hang in suspended state along the power lines of the magnetic field. Today, you will learn what causes the local weakening of the magnetic field. Just as in the auroras, the red color in the light pillars indicate molecular oxygen, which we breathe, is being destroyed by harsh cosmic radiation. Molecular oxygen turns into atomic oxygen, which emits a reddish color, reddish light. This in turn indicates that anomalous zones in the magnetic field are becoming more frequent and more extensive, and the power lines of magnetic field are distorted. As a consequence, our atmosphere is subjected to even more severe attacks from cosmic radiation. Now, you understand why such phenomena as light pillars are not at all fascinating, but rather is frightening. Our protective magnetic field is weakening severely. Harsh cosmic radiation is penetrating deeper and deeper into the Earth's surface, and oxygen in the atmosphere is depleting. All this is progressing extremely rapidly, and we, being intelligent and educated people, do not see that. We admire the anomalous polar light pillars, and say, how beautiful. What can be beautiful about impending death? Atypical anomalies in the magnetic field are terrifying and alarming phenomena, which is related to the destabilization of the core of our planet due to cosmic impact, which affects our planet once every 12,000 years. The climate Cerberus has literally given us, all of humanity, a black mark, and we admire and marvel at it. This is a Cerberus that dictates a sentence to all of humanity.